Welcome to a first-person journey. My name is G. On today's episode, I need to take a moment to describe what my wife actually did after the worst day of our marriage. Because I think it is easy to gloss over, and it should not be glossed over. She had every reason to be done, every right to step back and say, "You created this. You figure out how to fix it." The damage I had caused was not a single incident, it was a pattern. Years of the same behavior arriving in different forms. And when the full weight of it finally landed in the room between us, she did not just decide to stay, she decided to help. She thought about what I actually needed. She researched. She found books by people who had spent their entire careers understanding the specific kind of wounds and patterns I carry. She did not send me a link. She went and bought the books herself. She found a Bible she believed would speak to where I was. She bought a journal so I would have a private space to put what I had been carrying silently for years. And she invited me into something. A shared practice, praying together, reading together, doing something side by side that said, we need God in the middle of this, not just our own effort. That is an act of extraordinary generosity. From a woman who was still in pain, who was still reckoning with what had been done to her, who had every justification to turn inward and focus entirely on her own healing. Instead, she turned toward me, with tools in her hands. Now I have to tell you the part that is harder to say. Those books sat where she left them for months. The Bible she chose for me sat where she placed it. The journal went unopened. We prayed together 2 times in all those months. And not once during that stretch did I sit down and say, "Let us do what you asked. Let's read together tonight. Let us open this and start." She had handed me everything I needed, and I left it on the table. Not because I forgot it was there. I saw it every day. The books were right there. The Bible was right there. I walked past all of it, day after day, week after week, while my wife watched. That is the truth of what happened. And I am not going to soften it because softening it would be one more version of the same thing I had been doing for years. Finding a way to make my choices sound better than they were. They were not better than they were. A man whose wife handed him a path forward and who walked past it every day for months does not get to tell himself he was doing his best. He was doing what was comfortable. And comfortable was not what the moment required. I want to tell you what the resistance was underneath. Not as an excuse, as an honest accounting of something I think a lot of men do, and almost none of them talk about. There was fear in those books, genuine fear. The best therapists and teachers do not write books that let you off the hook. They write books that walk you straight into the places you have been running from. They name patterns and wounds and behaviors with a precision that does not allow for comfortable distance. I knew that. And the part of me that had been running from that kind of clarity for decades was still very much present. Still finding ways to make tomorrow a better day to start. There was also pride. The same pride that has threaded through every episode on this channel. The quiet belief that I should be able to work through this on my own terms. That needing a book to help me understand myself was an admission I was still not fully ready to make. That sitting down with my wife to pray and read was a level of vulnerability that the old version of me did not know how to occupy. And then, there was something more specific. Something I think men who have caused serious harm to the people they love will recognize. Guilt that has not become action is very good at disguising itself as progress. I was carrying real guilt about what I had done. That guilt was genuine. But carrying guilt and doing the work are not the same thing. A man can walk around heavy with remorse and still not open the book, still not pick up the journal, still not be the one to say, "Let us pray tonight." I had been mistaking the weight of my guilt for the work of my healing. They are not the same. One is something that happens to you. The other is something you choose. For months, I chose the guilt and called it growth. And every day she walked past those books. Every day she saw the Bible where she had placed it. Every day she lived alongside a man who said things were going to be different, and then did not do one of the most specific and concrete things she had asked. She is not a woman who makes requests lightly. She had thought carefully about what she was asking. She had invested her own time and her own money and her own emotional reserves into finding things that might actually reach me. And she was watching to see whether that investment had been worth making. The longer the books stayed closed, the clearer her answer was becoming. Not because she was keeping score, but because a woman who has been disappointed that many times learns to read the small signals very accurately. And an unopened book is not a small signal. It is a direct communication. It says, "I heard what you asked, and I chose not to prioritize it." She began to pull back, not dramatically, quietly, the careful way a person protects themselves when they are deciding how much hope is safe to extend. She had been rethinking. I could feel it even when she did not say it directly. I had put her in that place, and my inaction was keeping her there. That is a hard thing to sit with. It is harder still to say out loud. But this channel exists for exactly that reason, to say the hard things out loud so that someone else does not have to live inside them alone. I have had a lot of time to think about what each of those things she gave me actually represented, and I want to share that because I think it matters. The books from respected therapists were not just reading material. They were her saying, "I believe your healing is possible. I found people who understand what is broken in you and who have written down what repair actually looks like. I went and got that for you because I still believe in you even when you have given me very little reason to." The journal was her saying, "You have never had a private, honest space that belongs only to you. A place where you can put what you are actually thinking and feeling without performing it for anyone. Here is that space." The Bible was her saying, "You cannot do this on human effort alone. You need something larger than either of us. I went and found you a place to start." And the invitation to pray and read together was the most significant of all. She was not just asking him to heal somewhere privately and report back. She was asking to be part of the healing, to do something sacred alongside him, to bring God into the middle of the marriage at the same time as the hard human work of rebuilding it. She handed me all of that, with hands that had every right to be empty. It took me far too long to understand the full weight of what she was offering. I'm not going to tell you there was one dramatic moment when everything changed, and I suddenly became a man who opened the books and led the prayers and did all the things she asked. That is not how it happened, and this channel does not tell stories that way. What happened was slower than that, and more honest. There came a point where I could no longer look at those books and feel the guilt of not opening them without understanding that the guilt itself had become an excuse. That as long as I was busy feeling bad about not doing the work, I did not have to do the work. That the discomfort of my own inaction had become a strange kind of substitute for actual movement. And there came a point where I looked at my wife and I saw something that I had been too focused on my own guilt to see clearly before. She was getting tired of waiting. Not with the explosive anger of the day everything came out. Something quieter and in some ways more frightening. The quiet of a person who is running out of reasons to keep extending themselves towards someone who has not been extending back. That quiet reached me in a way that the guilt alone had not. I began to move toward what she had been asking for, in the months of not moving. In finally seeing clearly what my stillness was costing the woman who had handed me everything I needed to begin. I want to speak directly to you now. If someone in your life has handed you tools, books, a Bible, a journal, a therapist recommendation, an invitation to do something together that might actually help, and those things are sitting somewhere in your home right now, untouched. I know why they are still there. I lived in that same place for months. The fear of what the pages will ask you to see. The pride that says you should be able to handle this without a book telling you how. The guilt that has settled into your chest and that you have been mistaking for growth because at least it means you are feeling something. None of that is movement. All of it is staying in place while the person who gave you those tools watches and waits and slowly begins to lose the faith that this time is different from all the other times. She is not going to wait forever. I need you to understand that, not as a threat, as the plain truth of what extended disappointment does to even the most faithful and generous person. The tools she gave you are not just objects, they are a message. They are her saying, "I still believe healing is possible for you. I went and found what that might look like. I am asking you to meet me here." How long are you going to make her ask? My wife gave me a map when she had every reason to leave me without one. I left that map on the table for months, walked past it every day, felt bad about walking past it, and kept walking. That is not the story I wanted to tell on this channel, but it is the true one. And the true ones are the only ones worth telling. What changed, how it changed, and what I found on the other side of finally picking up what she gave me. That is where this channel goes from here. The healing did not begin the day everything came out. It began the day I finally stopped walking past what was waiting for me.